everybody, it's Catherine from Jayne, Catherine on Books, and I'm here with a wrap up for Bookbuddyathon. So this took place in June, and my buddy as usual was my bestie Kerry-Ann from WomanVsBooks, and we had a really enjoyable Bookbuddyathon, as we always do. I think this is our fourth year. Of doing it, and so go along. If you don't know Kerry-Ann's channel, go and have a look, and she did a really good wrap up from all the books that she read. So the book we read together is The Hidden People by Alison Littlewood. And I'd had this book, I bet it's 2 years I had this on my shelf, and I got one for Kerry-Ann as well, and we had every intention of reading this together ages ago, and then other things came along and we never got around to it. So I suggested that we get it read for this year's Bookbuddyathon, and we're glad we chose it. We had a really good time discussing it. Now the premise of this is that our main character, he is called Albie, and he goes to the Great Exhibition at Crystal Palace. So for those of you that aren't in the UK, Crystal Palace is in London. The original Crystal Palace was actually in Hyde Park, not where Crystal Palace is now. And where Crystal Palace is now, the whole town, I don't know if it's classed as a town, but the whole suburb, London suburb of Crystal Palace now exists, and it's grown around, I'm not sure what the structure is there now. I know that there's a big mast there for communications and everything. So the Great Exhibition was everything to do with science, really, all scientific discoveries, and a bit like Tomorrow's World back in time. So those of you that are old enough to remember Tomorrow's World that we had in the UK, every week it used to come out with weird and wonderful things that were going to be invented, or things that are going to aid man in the future. And even sitting here now videoing this, probably when I was a child, it was some way out thing that was on Tomorrow's World. So anybody that was really interested in science, had a scientific mind, used to go to the Great Exhibition. So Albie goes to the exhibition this particular time, and he meets his cousin, who's called Lizzie Higgs. Now I'm not sure what year we do start off in, to be honest, can't remember. He's never met this cousin before, but he's sort of bowled over by her. He's really smitten with her, even just meeting her for the first time, and they have a really lovely day and looking around the exhibition. And I think he's quite pleased that that his cousin, a female cousin, is interested in the same sort of things as him, and interested in the science and all things future. And obviously in those days, women had to fight to be interested in furthering their education in that field, really. But anyway, he then gets married. He sort of marries somebody because it was expected of him, I think, from the right, they had to marry into the right family. And they're sitting down one day having a meal, and they get news that Lizzie has been murdered. So Albie decides he's going to up and off to this place in Yorkshire somewhere, and he's going to go and obviously sort out the funeral, because she's got no living relatives, and put her to rest. And also he takes it upon himself to find out who murdered her. And it becomes a bit of an obsession, really. He's obsessed with, obviously only met her the once, and he becomes quite obsessed. This place is somewhere that is very much steeped in folklore. They've got all sorts of strange superstitions there, and they believe there's a fairy ring on the top of this hill in the village, and ever so often the fairies come and take people away. So the village truly believe that Lizzie's been abducted by the fairies, and in her place was a changeling was put in her place, and this changeling, her husband, decides that this the law is that changelings have to be done in, they have to be murdered so that the real person can come back. So this is all playing out in front of Albie. It's very different from his own life. His wife is fed up of him being away as long as he is and investigating the murder of a cousin that he's only just met, and she turns up and starting to act very strange. He decides that they go and move into the very cottage where Lizzie was murdered, which I thought was odd, and absolutely unique, interesting plot. Now, we did have a few problems with the pacing of this. It was very slow in places, and you're thinking, oh goodness me, this needs a bit of a kick to get it going. And there were times when both of us thought, oh crikey, can we carry on with this? I'm not sure, it's a bit of a slog. But then the pacing does improve, it does become more interesting. The ending is really good, very, very good ending, and it's very well written. So the dilemma we had was that it was well written, it got a great plot, we really enjoyed it, it gave us loads to talk about. But enjoyment of it because of the pacing problems, we felt we couldn't give it a really high rating, but it deserved a high rating. So we were in a bit of a dilemma with this one. So I'd like, to see what people thought, or you read it yourself. It's well worth a read. If you like historical fiction and you like a bit of magical realism and anything to do with the Fae, then I think you'd really enjoy this, but just be aware the pacing, we both felt the pacing was off. But thoroughly enjoyed it. So that's The Hidden People, Alison Littlewood. So that was our book that we buddy read.
Go.
So second book is Buddy Had to Pick a Book Off Your Shelf. So I gave her a choice, and we had this one, Marrying a Stranger, Anna Jacobs. And I really enjoyed this one. This is the one where Megan meets this guy. It's instant attraction, and they just start seeing each other, and the only problem is that he's going off to Australia for work in a week's time, and she said, well, what's the point in seeing him, what's the point in getting together if off you go in a week's time. Anyway, they go on a few dates, and there's this instant chemistry, and I thought, oh crikey, this is going to be, we know what's happening here, that everything was, I don't know, it felt as if you knew where the plot was going, and it quite surprised me, it didn't. She decides that she's going to go with him. He asks her to marry him after only knowing her about 2 or 3 weeks. She decides she's going to go with him all the way to Australia. And really it's looking at their relationship and how their relationship builds while they're out there. And and you can imagine that there's an ex, can't you? There's an ex-girlfriend that turns up, tries to put a spanner in the works, or she may even put a spanner in the works, it doesn't end how you think. So I think I've not read Anna Jacobs, but I think that it was a very interesting, well written book. It was women's fiction, but it wasn't just a light and fluffy read. It was an interesting plot. It was a nice romance, and I enjoyed it, just what I needed really. So that's Marrying a Stranger. That was for the second prompt. Third prompt Let's see where I am here. Read a book your buddy gave 5 stars to. Now originally she gave me a few choices. The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and I have read that by Stuart Turton, and originally I was going to reread that because I definitely want to reread it. And then the other one was Nevermore, and everybody, I think nearly everybody's read Nevermore, and I don't know where I've put it now. I put it back on my shelf somewhere and I don't know where. Can't see it. Sorry, can't see it. And I gave Nevermore 5 stars when I originally read it. It's a... Oh, hold on a minute. I know where it is. Excuse that interlude. Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow, Jessica Townsend. I had to find it for you because it's just a stunning book. Beautiful, beautiful book on your shelf. So, as I say, I was going to read 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, but when it came to reading it, I just didn't fancy it, because it's one of those books that I read it initially on NetGalley, and I loved it. I think I gave it 4 stars. Kerry Ann gave it 5 stars. And it's excellent, but I thought, and I'm sure I'll be right with this, I'll get more and more from it the next time you read it. It's one of those books, it's very complex plot, and you know, you've got to have your mind, you've got to concentrate really to get really what's going on. So, and especially with being the lockdown and everything that's happened, my brain wasn't in quite the right place. So I decided I'd reread Nevermore. Well, in some ways I wish I hadn't, because I didn't enjoy it the same. So I haven't put it in my Goodreads. I haven't changed my my rating of it. I did give it 5 stars originally. It wasn't the same the second time round. I mean, you know, it is a children's story. It is like a fantasy land, and it's well worth a read if you've not read it. There's Morrigan Crow supposed to die on a certain birthday, and she gets whisked off into this magical land called Nevermore, and she has to complete various trials. So there we go. I didn't enjoy rereading it, but well worth you looking at that. And what have we got next? Favourite colour of your buddy on the cover, and that was lilac. Kerry Ann's favourite colour is lilac. I chose this, The Lost Art of Letter Writing by Mena van Praag. Now, I've read other books by Mena van Praag before and loved them. I didn't finish this, I have to say, and the reason behind it is what you get is not what's written on the tin. So basically this is supposed to be a shop, a magical shop, where people can go in, and it's a bit like when Harry Potter goes to choose his wand and the right one chooses him. A bit like that, except this is paper and a pen, so that people can send letters to loved ones, either those that have passed away or those that are still here. I was all excited for it. People going into this shop and getting to know their stories. Well, I started reading it, and within a fortnight she shut this shop. So I'm not sure that there's anything wrong with the story if that's what you're expecting. But you know, when you go into a book and you're expecting to have this lovely magical shop where people come in and write all, you know, get things off the chest and write them down with these magical pens, well, she shut shop, so that it just totally spoilt it for me. So I DNF'd it in the end. I really tried, but you know, when you've got your head around what you think a book is, and it's not like that. So I'm not saying it's a bad book. I'm not giving it a rating. I'll read it some other time. But please be aware that if you have a look at the blurb on this and you're expecting this magical shop, well, she closes it and goes on a jolly round the Netherlands. So that's that one. Next Let's have a look what we got now. Read a book about friendship. And I loved it. This is the one. It was on my shelves. It's by Fanny Blake. I've not read anything by her before. And I really, really enjoyed this. It's with a friend like you. It's supposed to be about friendship, and it is. It's about Beth and Megan. Two very different characters. And something happens within their families that causes a sort of rift to take place between the two of them, and it's how they come to terms with that, really, and battle through that. They've been friends for many years. They've been there through thick and thin, and you know, it really puts their friendship under jeopardy. Is that the right way of saying it? Yeah, it puts them under a lot of strain, a lot of stress. And yeah, the friendship is in jeopardy, and it's how they work through that to try and save that relationship, really. Very well written, really exciting story. And yeah, I'm certainly going to read Fanny Blake again. So that's with a friend like you, Fanny Blake. So the last bit we had to do, we had to we had to watch a film even. We had to choose a film that we were going to watch, and obviously we're both in different parts of the country. Kerry Ann's down in Devon and I'm in the north, in North Yorkshire, but you know, we communicate a lot and we're always chatting and what have you. So we set a time limit when we were going to watch this, and I suggested we watched the 39 Steps. Now there's several versions of this, and we had got the DVD, I think it is, of the 1935 version, and very old black and white version, and I've never seen it. I've seen the oh yes, we've got the 1935 version, oh black and white. There is a Kenneth More version which is in the 50s sometime, and then the one that I'd seen was the Robert Powell 1978 version, and they are very different to the book. I've not read the book, but David has, and they've got different twists and turns to the book, and they have made a play version of it, which is a bit of a spoof, and if you ever get a chance to see it, it's hilarious, absolutely hilarious. And it's sort of taking the mickey out the 1935 version of 39 Steps, and I can understand why. So yeah, we enjoyed it. It was a bit confusing at the beginning. It's a bit of a spy story, and we weren't quite sure what was happening, and we had to contact each other a couple of times, say, oh, can you work this out or that out? But anyway, we got there in the end. We enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, but not for the reasons I was supposed to. It was hilarious. It was very serious. But, you know, when you're watching really old films in black and white and they're very stilted and they're rubbish. Well, it was like that. It was like that. It was like this spy, and you know, all of a sudden this woman says, can I come home with you, in this so-called Russian accent. And oh, of course, yeah, you just meet a stranger off the street, don't you, and take him home. So he takes her home, and do you fancy some fish? And he's got his overcoat on, and he suddenly gets this great big slab of fish haddock or whatever out of a bit of a paper bag, slaps it in the frying pan, and I couldn't stop laughing. But it's a serious film, so yeah, that's what does it say about me when I'm just laughing at it. So it really was what we needed. We thoroughly enjoyed it. I personally recommend the Robert Powell version. We have recently watched that. We watched that recently since we finished the Bookbuddyathon. And I like that version better, I have to say. The ending's a bit more exciting. So that's the 39 steps, John Buchanan, and you can, we do have the book, but I'm not going to hand at the minute. So that is what Kerry Ann and I did for Bookbuddyathon 2020, and actually it was just what we needed. It cheered us up. We got some good reads in there, and yeah, it'll be same time, same place next year for Bookbuddyathon 2021. So thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to like and subscribe as usual, and press that ding-a-ling bell so that you'll be notified of any upcoming content. There's a few new things coming up because you know, we've had a bit of a chat in the comments and there's been some new suggestions. So yeah, watch this space. So anyway, thanks for joining me. Take care. Bye for now.